Welcome to TV on TV. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo. You're watching Brookline Interactive Group. Today is Thursday, April 4th, and we have a special series for you today. As you know, we've heard from Neil Wyshynski, candidate for moderator. We've heard from all three candidates for Housing Authority, and now we're ready to move on to the big show, Select Board. There are 5 candidates. 2 will be elected on Tuesday, May 7th. And the first one we're going to talk with is Sana Hafeez. Sana, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you may be newer to some folks in town than some of the other candidates. Let's start with the basics. Ooh, what's your story? What are you doing? Who are you? What's going on? Tell us all about yourself for a couple of minutes so we can get to know you a little bit.
Sure, no problem. So my name's Sana Hafeez. I live in Precinct 4. I've been organizing in Brookline for a few years now. Really, I think that's how the folks that do know me is, from just running around. I walk a lot through town. So, that's probably where most folks know me from, if not from organizing. But I've been doing this work for a while and, I've come to love Brookline. I actually ended up moving to Brookline when, I initially started organizing here and I fell in love with the community. I saw so much potential for change. I saw so many beautiful things. I was embraced wholly, and it was such an experience for me. Someone, I grew up in the South, I have a completely different background than a lot of folks, but it just goes to show that community is deeper than culture, than race, than anything like that. If you have the same principles and the same goals, we have something in common. And that's what I found when I came to Brookline.
And so I'm delighted you're here. In fact, most people in Brookline are not actually born in Brookline. We find our way here because it is such a great community. And, you're actually looking to make a big sacrifice of yourself on behalf of the town. Tell us about your decision to run for Select Board.
Sure. So to be honest, I think that when I talk about this, I have to frame it in my perspective on what it means to be in local office or even to be a community organizer. If your goal is to help the community, your goal should be to make them more self-sufficient. You should make them self-reliant. Your job is to make yourself obsolete. And of course, there's terms, and you have those allotted timings when you're an elected official to get certain things done. But as a community organizer as well, your job should be to make communities self-reliant, self-sufficient. You're supposed to build resilient communities that don't need you. So my choice to run really came from seeing that time and time again. Brookline is such a beautiful town with so many resources, so many folks with so much education. I believe we're the #1 percent-wise PhD holders in the country for our town. So it's just, there's such a wealth of resources, a wealth of access, a wealth of privilege, but I haven't seen very much change for a lot of communities that have been marginalized and underrepresented. I mean, in terms of just straight numbers, a lot of folks like to just go straight statistics. The Black population has not rose above 3% in the past 30 years. And a lot of other communities have had a lot of success, and that's not to take away from their success. But if you think that the only reason that certain communities are thriving and certain others are not thriving is purely on those communities, then that's pretty naive. We need to do our job as community members to help all of us become, proficient, contributing members of society, and it makes it better for all of us. So time and time again, I saw folks doing this work. I'm not the first person. I'm 27. I'm learning from the elders in the community that have done this 100 years, 30 years. They're lifelong residents. They've done this so much longer than me. But what I've seen again and again is that, I think Brookline is really good at seeing what the pulse is in the community in terms of the country, these progressive values, green things, putting up the Black Lives Matter sign, all these great things, but they're not really having effective change. And so I chose to run because there's a lot of efforts for change, but they're not too effective. And they're not ones that everyday people can identify with. That's something that I heard time and time again through my community organizing. And I ran across all different kinds of folks with all different kinds of barriers to success. And that was the resounding fact that I heard again and again. We see people elected that might look like us, but do they serve our interests? Do they help us get better? I mean, poverty rates have increased for the Black community, even though we had the first African-American Select Board member, which is amazing. That's a historic feat, but we can do more than just seeing someone that looks like us in a position where they can help us. They need to actually do that. And, this isn't a testament to people's willingness or their desire to help. But the fact is, what you do in private comes out in public. And if you are someone, that practices great things in private, you can do great things in public. But at the same time, if you are someone that, doesn't understand the everyday experience of these folks that are dealing with these issues, then when you try, well-intentioned as you are to make solutions, they're not practical. They're not ones that the community can identify with. They're not community-based solutions. They're not from there. They're not originating from there. You have less community buy-in. And on top of it, we see that divide really deepen in Brookline between folks that, think that progressive values are, for show or just to, be woke, to be honest. I think that if we can bridge that gap and show that these measures to build equity are not just beneficial for everyone, but they're very successful when done with community buy-in, that'll really reduce that harsh divide between, the unspoken two different communities of Brookline. But that's why I chose to run. I'm not bringing anything that is unknown to folks in Brookline. But what I am bringing is, I think, a little bit more of an honest interpretation of what's going on, one that doesn't laud all of the superficial or virtue signaling accomplishments, but one that says, let's take a step back from all the glamour, from everything that gets headlines, and let's actually do something that impacts people's daily lives.
So every townwide elected official, select board in particular, brings a set of skills, a set of interests, a toolbox to the job, and everyone's toolbox is different. What are some of the things that you think you would bring to the select board that maybe it doesn't have enough of now, in your view? Where do you see your skill set and contribution really showing up amongst the group of five?
Absolutely. I mean, again, a testament to Brookline. Again, the other folks running are extremely qualified. I think most of them even have graduate degrees. They're so established in their fields. They've done a lot of work, both in other town departments, running for other local elected office positions, and they have a lot of experience doing this. But what folks don't have experience in is actually living the circumstances that they say they're trying to help people change. People might be able to identify with one specific item. They might be able to identify with, oh, I'm a minority, right? Oh, but are you a minority that's racially marginalized in terms of skin color? There's a history in this town, and in America itself, the paper bag test, there's not just a white and a black issue. There's a scale and a spectrum, and these things all intersect and interact with each other. Not only that, so I have that lived experience through multiple intersections that I can identify with people. But on top of it, I have that lived experience, and the lived experience doesn't just come from me. It comes from folks that have lived in Brookline for hundreds of years, their grandparents and the people that are alive today that are, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that, we've reached out through community feedback sessions and met so many folks. The wealth of knowledge in the town is astounding. And I think what I bring is that I'm not simply looking to get that knowledge and, just have it inform my opinion on what we should do with that. I'm here to represent those folks and what they feel will help them. I think that that's the disconnect that we see in the select board. There's a lot of folks that have done a lot of things, but it hasn't directly connected with the everyday person. Well-intended efforts don't necessarily mean effective efforts. Outside of that, I have a track record of success. We've done so much community. I say we because it's not me, again, it's the community. We've done so many different things. I mean, from programs that address every different facet of equity. People don't understand that to address one is to address all. You can't address, the environment without understanding, why are we trying to save the environment? For who are we trying to save the environment, right? We saw all these great efforts to electrify and do all these things to make Brookline greener, but it shouldn't just become greener. It should be black and browner too, And at the end of the day, we're not making this town greener or this planet greener just for one population. This is for everybody. We all cohabitate and share this earth the same way that we share Brookline. So if our efforts to make Brookline greener, to make it better, are restrictive, then we're not really living in those values. We're not really succeeding at those values. I think that at the end of the day, there are folks with great intentions. I don't think there's too much malice, to be honest. But I do think that there's a humility that needs to come. There's an accountability to the community that needs to be there. There's a lack of transparency. And I think that when you're accountable to folks, especially when they're your neighbors and they see you every day, it creates a different relationship between the everyday person and governance. So I think that that's a difference that I bring to the table. But again, it's not so much me, it's more so the community. I'm a representative of my community, and I truly take that seriously. I want to be an accurate representation, not just one that's informed or seeks feedback but doesn't implement it in a meaningful way. I'm here to implement the direct desires of the folks that haven't been heard time and time again. You know, even in the past few years, we've seen more folks than ever come out and voice their opinions, saying that, you know, they've been suffering in Brookline, from the Muslim community recently to the Jewish community recently, the Black and Brown community recently. Folks have been coming to town meeting, they've been coming to select board meetings. People have been saying that horrendous things have been happening to them. Things have not gotten better, but worse. You know, there's been kids at school that have been called the N-word, and that's not something new. I mean, the youths, they went and, you know, staged a walkout. The people of Brookline, especially those that aren't heard, they're not unheard because of lack of effort or lack of desire. They're unheard because the times that they are asked for feedback, it's asked performatively. It's not genuinely implemented. It's asked to check a box that we reached out to these folks. So what we're doing is informed. But again, there's that disconnect there. And if an everyday person like myself can translate that and bridge that gap, that's something I bring to the table. The track record of success comes from, I mean, if we're able to create programs, you know, with such a short timeline that have already made results. I mean, in another capacity in my everyday work as a community organizer, you know, we've created programs that have graduated residents that now have licenses to work. There's other programs in town that have, you know, existed with similar purposes for years and years and years, but we haven't seen that impact. And if someone, you know, not someone, but if a community that is underrepresented, underfunded, you know, underbelieved in, you know, thought of to be as less competent time and time again, and we've heard that from town officials multiple times. I've been called so many things from elected officials. If we can do this, despite all these barriers, imagine what we can do in a governmental position, in a local office position. You know, it's not just seeing as believing, it's putting action to that work. This isn't
So let's
yeah.
so let's talk about some of the things that you some of those actions, some of those items. You know, I think some folks think about leadership as the model and are looking for a leader sort of absent specifics, and other folks really want to get into the, okay, so what's the list, what's the to-do list, what's the shopping list?
Sure.
And so for Sana, you know, what is your shopping list? What's your to-do list as a select board member? What are the things you want to try to make tangible and measurable progress on?
Absolutely. I think that this is, again, a super basic question, and all the questions kind of come back together. Whatever you can possibly ask, the answer will always be, but these all connect in a way. You know, everything is connected. So, you know, let's break it down into pieces of a pie, right? So affordable childcare, affordable housing, right? So we need not only do these things intersect with, again, making the planet greener, making Brookline greener, but again, it comes back right back around to who are we doing this for? The entire community. I mean, affordable childcare in town, folks are spending about $140 at least a month driving, or, you know, taking the bus or driving all the way to Jamaica Plain, Boston to get a voucher accepting facility. That's not economically feasible. These folks are already low income. That's why they have vouchers, and they can't find a childcare center in town. They're losing between 15 and 20 hours a week that they could be working, again, losing more income just to have someone be able to watch their children. I mean, there are so many barriers that you don't experience or are aware of truly unless you live with these people, or they're next to you, or they're your neighbors, or they talk to you about it every day and you see the impacts of this. You know, someone might think, oh, $140 is nothing, but for somebody living at that poverty level, $140 is food for your family for the week.
To say nothing of the time requirement when that parent could be earning money, doing something in the home, spending time with their child, right? It's the money and the time.
Absolutely. I mean, you're losing 15, 20 hours a week. And, you know, if we want Brookline to be this place with all of these green spaces and amenities, which I fully support, you know, I love green spaces. I grew up in the South, and, you know, because of the beautiful weather, I was out in those green spaces all the time. And it saddens me when I came to Brookline. You know, there's so many great groups, like there's this biking group, and there's all these different folks that go on hikes, and you could find a group for any possible outdoor project that you want. But even then, when you look at the folks that make up those, you know, those different groups and organizations, it's not too many folks that look like us that participate in there. And that's because of a lack of access. That's not a result of the folks in those groups being unwelcoming, but that's because of the conditions that folks like us live in. It doesn't allow us the time to be able to do anything like that. I would love to see families going to the park and having a fun time and doing all these things. in these hours that they would save driving to childcare far away. And it ties into saving the environment. I mean, how much emissions are we putting into the air? How much fossil fuels are we using to facilitate this transport? This goes into affordable housing. Folks can't find affordable housing in Brookline, or in having to drive to Boston and live there, commute to Brookline to work, or, depending on the situation. We're creating so much unnecessary transport by just creating a Brookline that's not accessible for folks, creating a more accessible Brookline. I think, again, another point here is that folks love the quote, and I love the quote, equality feels like oppression when you're used to privilege. And I think that quote is very important. But at the same time, it focuses on the fact that folks are worried about losing something, right? That privilege. But what it should focus on is how much you'll gain from that equity. The quality of life for everybody increases. Growing up in a diverse environment, growing up in a collaborative environment, a collaborative environment and a diverse environment that it accepts and encourages that is completely different than a diverse environment with a lot of barriers. It creates more social cohesion. Everybody benefits. The air quality benefits. You couldn't find a negative solution to it. So, when we look at affordable childcare, we look at affordable housing, even when we look at creating job opportunities in town, fostering small businesses, fostering businesses that, folks that are marginalized, that cannot get other jobs, folks that have been asking for these workforce development programs, ones that can actually help them, make the content accessible for them, help them bridge these gaps. And, information technology, the ability to use computers, to be honest, since everything went remote during COVID. This affects folks that are elderly. This affects folks that don't have access to technology as much, such as low-income folks. It's an overreaching barrier that affects folks from so many different communities, but there is a solution that helps all of us. I think that it sounds so simple sometimes, but if you just look at the basic facets of what people need to live and, work, play, all these things, you need childcare. Everyone has kids, or a lot of folks have kids or knows kids. Everyone's in a community with kids. I don't have kids myself, maybe one day, but I would love to be in a town that has a place where they can go, where I don't have to lose that 15, 20 hours a week. That would change everything. I live next to folks that, have lived in Brookline their whole lives and had to go outside of town for childcare. It's a real experience that still exists today. Brookline today doesn't have a facility that accepts vouchers. I was a part of the team that's actually bringing the first affordable childcare facility to town that accepts vouchers. So it's not just seeing the problems and seeing the gaps. I've been working to fill each gap that I see, right? So affordable childcare.
So I want to dive into that, right? It's clear from your words on today's show that you have deep experience in this community working on making Brookline a more equitable place. Tell us, the viewers, what are some of the things that you've done? What are some things that you tried and haven't worked yet? Some things you've done that have worked, some things that you're working on right now. Give us some of those juicy details.
Well, I'll definitely say that nothing hasn't worked, because at the end of the day, even when we haven't been successful in a traditional sense, we've brought awareness to the fact that our community is creating solutions, that just need support to be successful. Usually the lack of success, or really, I think the lack of thoughtful implementation, lack of support at a town level, I think that comes from folks not believing in us, folks not believing that folks that look like us can do things like that. I mean, to be honest, walking around Brookline, I've had folks yell things at me. Folks assume I don't speak English. I was born in Kansas City. I have an American accent, but it runs deep. And even through success, through that affordable childcare center that we're bringing to town, and that I'm bringing to town in another capacity, I should say, in my private life as an organizer. I've also been working in other facets of equity as well as a private organizer. As a private person that organizes, I've been working in affordable housing as well. In another capacity, I sent in a proposal to CPA, which was a community-driven solution. I think that, again, folks don't understand that there are town solutions, but there's also community solutions that the town can embolden and help. If a community itself wants to create a facet for them to live, why not support that? Why not allow them to be self-sustaining, self-sufficient? There's no reason that shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't matter whose name is on it. It shouldn't matter who gets the glory. It should matter that the numbers changed. Somebody's life was changed. Somebody was put in a home, and not just put in a home, Another thing we heard so many times was folks saying that they don't want to die in housing. I've lived here my whole life. I don't want to die here. And, I don't want to live in this home and then my kids have to go and rent for their whole life somewhere else. We need to make affordable rent to own options. It's for the betterment of our entire community. It will create a more integrated community, one where, folks don't see diversity as something that's thrown in and forced and haphazard, but rather a figment, a part of the fabric of our community, a permanent part of our community, in terms of that. And even in terms of workforce development, creating those programs, I've had success there too. Again, I mentioned earlier, I was a part of working to bring programs that, train residents to have their federal licenses. We've just succeeded in that. And again, I think really people don't understand the gravity of that either. People have made information accessible to folks that have absolutely no background in the fields that they are now, trained and working in. I can literally get a loss for words sometimes that this was even possible. And it makes me remember that if I never had these doubts in our community before, I can't allow, the repeated and constant assumptions that we can't do it to ever, make me believe that we can't do it too. And seeing that success again and again and again from the community has just reaffirmed that the community is capable, the community is driven, the community is hungry, so hungry for change. And I just want to create a pathway for them to be able to do that. In terms of addressing racism as well and transparency, those are other priorities. Had success there too. I mean, folks that do know me know that I'm a little bit vocal on Select Board and some other platforms. But at the end of the day, we need to bring back honesty to Brookline. I think that it's a little bit more respected than when we dance around sensitive topics. The more we can address things in an honest level, the more quickly they can get resolved. I mean, you might be aware I'm sorry, I should even go back a little bit before I get into this, but I was a part of creating Warrant Article 19 to create the Black and Brown Commission. This commission was a community effort that was born from
just to clarify, you don't mean Warrant Article 19 in the upcoming May town meeting. You mean
no,
Warrant Article 19 from a prior town meeting.
Absolutely, from last year, yes. That was a community more in solution. Folks said all the same things from community outreach. I've seen that folks need affordable housing, affordable childcare, they need workforce development, they need governance to serve them, to address the issues that they say and the ways that they say will help them. Community-driven solutions, community implementation, community feedback that isn't just to check a box. So, folks wanted to create a Black and Brown Commission, but even then, I can't believe the way we were so received, so horribly received, on one end and so well received on another. We saw historic amounts of participation from the community. I had never seen, so many folks telling me that they had never seen so many people come out and that never happens before. Black and brown folks don't participate too much, especially not the ones from certain socioeconomic backgrounds. I mean, this was historic. It was historic in that the participation rates accelerated, that it was historic in that people were excited. It was historic in that folks that had given up on local governance in the process were re-engaged and coming to events. It was beautiful. And then, we get there and it's nothing new, but you get called aggressive, you get called intimidating. These are tired and old tactics. But at the end of the day, it was incredibly heartbreaking that even when there's all these issues and a community gives you solutions, and in fact, they say, you know what, that's fine, we understand, let us, solve our problems. We experience this. These are our neighbors. These are our friends, our families. We have a sense of urgency to solve these problems that other folks don't because they don't know what it's like to live this every day. Let us be the shepherds of our future. And they were told no. The motion to refer itself, which is what I was about to bring up, was actually written the year before in 2022. And then it was voted on at town meeting, which I don't think is legal at all. But I mean, you're more the politics person, to be honest. I'm just a community organizer. I mean, folks were completely left in the dark. They were asked, why do you need a commission? What's the purpose of this? Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you gone this route? Have you talked to the CDCIR? Have you done this or that? And those questions themselves show that people are not plugged into what the community is saying. Yes, we have tried. We have gone this avenue, down this pathway. We've publicly told you that we've tried that. But even as we present, all these findings, it just goes in one ear and out the other, because as well-intended as people are, you cannot identify with this truly unless you've experienced it.
So Sana, we just have about 3 minutes left, and
Sure.
this is sort of like the good question. Right. So
Okay.
you suffer through all of my bad questions. Here's my good question. What do you see in Brookline's future? What's the future like for Brookline?
I see a Brookline where governance is not seen as a celebrity status. Governance is not seen as something that, you have to go and be a perfect speaker or the most educated person or, the most eloquent person. I think that a future Brookline is going to look like everyday residents taking the personal responsibility to make their communities better. I think it looks like folks participating more in local governance and local governance genuinely asking for their feedback and implementing it in a meaningful way. I think it looks like a greener society with, all of these fantastic, sustainable technologies and developments. And I work in the aviation industry as well, and I'm particularly excited about those that are coming. But as those come, I think that we should see a Black and browner future too. I think we should see the population shift in Brookline. I think that we should see these communities become flourishing and self-sustaining. I want to see a Brookline where folks don't have to sit there and feel like no matter how much they yell, how much they scream, how much they try every possible method, whether it's being amenable and being, friendly and whatever pathway people try to make these changes happen. I want to see results. Those results can be small, but they need to start. That's what I want to see in the next few years.
That sounds great. We're out of time because these interviews go really fast. Sana Hafeez running for the select board. Again, folks, the election is Tuesday, May 7th. There are 5 candidates for 2 positions on the select board. Every single one of them will be on this show on Tuesdays and on Thursdays at 2:30 p.m. Tune in and hear from all of them, or go online, brooklineinteractive.org or tommyvitolo.com/news, and hear from all of them. Think through your issues. Reach out to the candidates directly if you like. If you can't find them, I will connect you with them. And so important to get out and vote on Tuesday, May 7th. Sana Hafeez, thanks for coming on the show.
And if I could plug in the website that we're
Please,
just
hit
about
us.
Thank you. Again, we're a campaign that's run on nothing. We're just regular folks trying to do something that regular folks should be doing. It's thepeople4brookline.com. That's a number 4. And the email address that you can reach me at most efficiently is also thepeople4brookline@gmail.com. So hope to talk to you folks soon. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a great race.
Folks, thanks for watching, and we will see you every Tuesday and Thursday between now and Tuesday, May 7th, here on Brookline Interactive Group.